This program contains graphic descriptions of sex and violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
You're officially in ownership of someone else. You're a product, you're cattle.
I literally had to essentially turn tricks to get my money back.
Drugs and alcohol became part of the picture at a very young age, 7, 8, 9 years old.
That whole time was a blur. Being drugged, beat, raped repeatedly.
This is horrible. I hate this. This is not me, but I'm stuck. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to get out.
I don't know that I necessarily processed anything beyond surviving.
If anybody could take anything away from my story is it could happen to anybody.
Secura, Laura, and Rachel are sex trafficking survivors. 3 of likely hundreds, if not thousands, of Nebraskans, mostly women, who are sold for sex each year. It's different than prostitution because trafficking isn't voluntary. Here are their stories.
Currently, I am a crime victim advocate here at the Sarpy County Attorney's Office. We keep them informed of what their rights are as a victim or witness, but also where the case is going, what the movement is.
Secura knows what it's like to be a crime victim. She says her first rape came as a 6th grader behind a bowling alley. Many more followed in high school and college. Bad relationships and alcoholism were the norm. Then a job transfer took her to Kansas, where she met a guy she thought was perfect.
We go on our first date, and we go to a little concert in Lawrence. Then we go back, we sit in a park, and we're swinging and having a good time. Then we go for a walk in the neighborhood. I mean, to me, that's like the perfect date. And the next day, he's at my house, and he's moving in. And, it was so weird because, again, I'm 2.5 hours away from anybody I know. So this is all new to me. From there, he controlled everything I did, made sure that he knew where I was at all times. I could not move in that town without him knowing exactly where I was. We started frequenting the strip clubs. There were 2 of them in Topeka at the time, and we went to the one quite frequently and would spend entire paychecks there. And buying lap dances from the dancers, and he'd talk them into doing some extra things while they were dancing. Going to those, I don't know what they're called, sex shops. And I can remember going in the back of one in particular, and they had these booths in a row where you could rent videos and watch it in there and do what you do. But they had big windows so people could see in there. And I can remember we had to have sex in there and allow other people to watch. And again, while this is all going on, I'm thinking, this is horrible. I hate this. This is not me, but I'm stuck. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to get out. So you have to go with it. Because standing up to it, saying no, that just gets you beat.
This probably isn't what you think of when you think sex trafficking. Secura realized later that's what it was. A crime defined by force, fraud, or coercion.
I would put my check in, he would take the money out. And then the only way I could get my money back to pay for rent was we'd go to these sex shops, these strip clubs. We did the swingers thing. We called those 800 numbers or whatever those numbers are for phone sex. We were doing all of these things. And I didn't have a choice in this. It's like you do it or you get beat. So you've got your force, you've got your fraud, you've got your coercion. And then, of course, the interstate, because it was between Topeka and Independence, Missouri on Interstate 70. Again, at that time, I'm not thinking this is trafficking and this is really horrible. I'm just thinking, well, this really kind of stinks, and but I'll get through it. And but yeah, I literally had to essentially turn tricks to get my money back. The thought of leaving my job, something I felt I had worked so hard to prove to myself and to others that I can do this. And everything that I had worked for. And it's so difficult to walk away from that. And I felt like I'm stuck.
Secura's tattoos now hide one way she dealt with her life.
In certain light, I can see the scars from when I cut myself to get away, because I didn't know what else to do, but that was my main addiction, was cutting.
Then came a life-changing realization as she talked with her mom on the phone, watching the events of 9/11 unfold.
And we're watching it together, and we see the second plane hit. And I realized at that point, I need to be with my family. I need to figure a way out of here.
Secura moved back to Omaha and decided not to follow him to a new job in Florida.
He had threatened, if I can't have you, nobody will. So I was concerned for suicide as well as homicide, and he had the gun. So I know he had a means. So we go to file a protection order, and halfway through the paperwork, I remember looking at my mom and saying, I just got to let him go. Me filing this, he's gonna maybe try to fight it. He's gonna be living halfway across the United States. I just got to let him go. And the whole time he was moving, he called. I felt bad for him, like, this is my fault. And then he got to Florida, and then within about a couple of months, I was able to finally just break it off and emotionally break it off. Like the physical part, not a problem, but the emotional part, I had to do that, and changed my number and haven't heard from him since.
And meeting that survivor where that survivor is.
It isn't easy to identify victims and help them escape trafficking. Anna Brewer knows this from her years investigating trafficking for the FBI in Omaha and other places. Now she helps educate and train others about the crime.
It's difficult because, first of all, they don't see themselves as victims, right? They see themselves in a love relationship with their pimp. That's my boyfriend. He's not my pimp. If I've heard that once, I've heard it a million times. So self-identification is very, very challenging. Also, because it's hidden in plain sight, it might not be that obvious, right? Because it does look like a partnership, or it could look like a partnership. If the resources aren't there, it could be mistaken for a domestic violence relationship or just a sexual abused person, when in fact they're a human trafficked victim.
People want to go in and swoop and rescue the victims, and I get that. I mean, believe me, that's my prayer every day. But the deal is, sometimes the victims don't want to be rescued because right now they feel safer with this person, even though they don't really know what's going to happen, from moment to moment, because it's what they know. That person makes all the decisions. There's lots of rules and regulations. The world is very small.
Laura thought she was on the road to a better life the day she left Omaha for a trip to Chicago. A couple years earlier, she was gang raped, then trafficked by an abusive boyfriend who also got her hooked on drugs. But she got help, got clean, went back to school and church. She met a new guy, a little mysterious but nice, clean-cut, just friends, no pressure. They'd known each other for about a year when he told Laura he was driving to Chicago and offered a ride so she could hang out with friends. We're masking Laura's identity at her request.
We went to Chicago, and the whole drive, he's such a gentleman, nice guy, And never would I have guessed what was about to happen to me. I'm sitting in the car, and he's like, "Can I use your phone really quick?" And, being naive and young, just passed him over what I would call my lifeline. Oh, here you go. Follow him inside, and it's one of those like brick duplex houses. So it's like probably 4 different little apartments in one house. And I remember like going in, and like as we're about to go downstairs, he just turns out and he punches me in my face, and I feel like the blood just running down. And he just looks at me and he's like, "Don't do anything stupid. Do whatever I tell you to do." So I'm thinking in my head, like, what is going on? Like, what is he talking about? From there, I was through in a room with another girl. Concrete floors, real dark. It had like little red lights. I remember these little red lights, and it was like a bed built into the wall, but there was like blankets. And the other girl, she didn't talk too much. I had, kind of found out that she was from Florida. She was there from school, and she met a guy. And that whole time was a blur. Being drugged, beat, raped repeatedly. I mean, you would wake up and it was the next guy, and you would just pray the next guy was nice, or pray that they would use a condom. You're a product, you're cattle. And what's so crazy about it is he had my phone. He was using it to contact like when my parents would contact me, he would text me. And if they would call too much, he would give me the phone. But before any time he would give me the phone, he would threaten me and say, "Remember, I know where your family lives. And remember, I will kill your nephew. You don't know how many days you've been passed out." Because sometimes they would beat you so bad that you just go unconscious. So you be so drugged up, you don't know. But I do remember one day they came in and he told me, "We're leaving." And I was like, "Okay, yes, I'm gonna go home. This nightmare is over. I did what I was told. I get a chance to go home." And he said, "No, we're going to South Dakota." And we get to South Dakota, and it's like how do I explain it? They would call it like a trap house. I mean, there's drugs, there's prostitution, there's gambling, lottery, you name it. Everything is going on in this house. And the cycle begins all over again. One John after the next John, after the next John, after the next John. And then when you think you're done, then you have all the pimps and them, they take their turn at you, and whoever else wants to take their turn at you. Women, it didn't matter. And then I was informed by the guy, "We're leaving here, and when we leave here, everything's staying here. We're leaving your phone, we're leaving, no one's gonna know where you go." And I knew this was a turning point. If I didn't do something, or if I didn't try to run, I could disappear and I wouldn't be sitting here right now. In my head, I had like this bright idea, and I made like some crazy story about my phone needing a charger, and the gas station's right here. And here's the house, and there's this big fence, and then there's a gas station. Get my purse, and I know it was God, or I knew it was like some adrenaline, because I get over a fence, and as athletic as I have ever been in my life, I have never been able to climb a fence. But that day, I got over that fence.
Laura got to a phone, got to local police, who she says were more interested in a drug investigation. Then she waited for her parents to come get her and bring her back to Nebraska.
My dad walked right on in, and I just remember getting up and running to my dad. I can't explain the feeling of seeing my dad. The next day, my mom and dad took me to the ER, and I just remember all the tests and them looking over my body and everything that was wrong with me. Truth be said, I pray I can still have kids after the damage that's been done to me. But the physical damage doesn't compare to the mental and emotional damage that I had. for a good 3 months, maybe 3 to 5 months. I didn't want to leave the house for nothing. If my parents weren't going, I wasn't going. It was just real, how can I explain it? It was just like shell shock. Everything scared me. Everything frightened me.
As we looked at the body of literature out there, one of the things that was missing was survivor voice.
Malik hopes this Women's Fund commissioned report changes that. For this, 2 University of Nebraska researchers did in-depth interviews with 22 trafficking survivors, all women from Omaha and Lincoln. The survivors say threats, coercion, violence, psychological manipulation, and drugs led them to being sold for sex and kept them under control. They say fear of judgment, shame, even how they were treated afterwards by service providers and law enforcement made it hard to get help. They say lack of awareness makes trafficking possible, and they want people to understand traffickers and buyers could be anyone. Survivors say they need trafficking-specific housing, treatment for drugs and addiction, mental health care to deal with the trauma of trafficking, basic life skills like job training and financial literacy, and peer support groups and community-building opportunities with other survivors.
Hearing it from those individuals who have lived that life is critical to us setting up a system that's going to work, and was also critical for us to knowing how to best combat this.
I don't know if it's still there or not, but so you could get from the back rooms down onto the porch pretty easily, even as a little kid, like knowing that it wasn't that hard to do. So that's where that all started, really.
That was a decade of being trafficked, starting when Rachel was a 6-year-old in a house she says was full of kids and chaotic. As a result, easy to slip out at night unnoticed. She had a friend who had an older sister who had a boyfriend. Rachel says that older boyfriend raped her, then started selling her.
He used my friend, threats against him, first of all. If you don't do what I'm telling you to do, then I'm going to hurt him, and those kinds of things as ammunition, basically, to rope me in, and then started with threats against my family and other people that I knew. And first it was just random other people coming over to the house next door, and then it was like, well, I think that we can probably do more or get more out of you, so let's go to the house down the street or around the corner or, across town. And so it was not right away, but almost right away, within a couple of days.
So how often was this happening?
Probably 3-4 times a week, mostly at night. He would either come and tell me, this time or this, when this happens, then I'm going to need you to do this and leave your house. Or he would tell my friend to tell me, this after dinner tonight, pretend you're sick or something along those lines, and then go to bed early and then sneak out and those kinds of things. It was, looking back on it now, I feel like it was probably a lot better orchestrated than I even comprehended at that point in time. And of course, back then we didn't have the language that we have today. And in my frame of reference growing up, I understood that to be me being a prostitute. It didn't take long, probably a few months, before somebody else kind of took that role over. And he was still involved for a little bit, but at some point he kind of fades out and just off the face of the radar, basically. And then it was just different people, to be honest, that today it would be this guy, and then a couple days later it would be another guy. Like but you always knew who was in charge and who was going to follow through on whatever threats that they made when they came along. I don't know that I necessarily processed anything beyond surviving, you know, from today to tomorrow, or, you know, figuring out how to keep my mouth shut long enough so that I didn't actually say the wrong thing to the wrong person when drugs and alcohol became part of the picture, because a person can really only take those kinds of threats so much before they start saying, well, I'm going to tell anyway. You know, so drugs and alcohol became part of the picture at a very young age, 7, 8, 9 years old. You know, people are really good about not leaving marks, super obvious marks. So a lot of like my bruises and things like that were in places that you wouldn't see unless you were bathing or something along those lines. But definitely, like, there were bones that I didn't know could hurt, and, you know, muscles and things like that that I didn't even know a person had. For my dad, actually, when I finally kind of came clean to them about what had happened, and this was actually years after the fact, but he said one of his big keys that he just recognized later was that I stopped talking. I was a very jibber-jabbery child, and I'm sure that that's hard to imagine. But I just stopped talking at one point about the time that I was 6, almost 7. He said, just stop talking. And that makes so much sense now. But then he didn't know what that was about, or, you know, really had no way to kind of investigate that more. And then I had a couple of doctors like wonder what's going on with you, but there really wasn't any consistent, like, no, I'm seeing all this physical trauma to you, what's going on. A lot of the things that I would actually go see the doctor for were easily explained by being around a bunch of kids, you know, pushed down the hill sometimes, you know, skiing, quote unquote, skiing down this hill back behind us, actually, even as a little kid, like spraining my ankle, and those kinds of things. And after a while, it got to the point where I was very uncooperative. It sounds so weird to say those kinds of things, but, you know, in terms of business, like, I wasn't profitable anymore, and basically said, you know, you either need to let me go or you need to do whatever you're going to do, because I'm done. I can't keep doing this anymore. After a couple of weeks of silence, I got the notification basically to meet them downtown, and they made a pretty significant threat to myself and my family. And then I never heard from them again after that.
No one ever faced trafficking charges for what happened to Secura, Laura, or Rachel, and that's common. Because of the ways traffickers control their victims, some aren't fully aware of what's even happening to them. Add to that, the concept of trafficking is fairly new in the United States, and resources to help victims have been scarce. Jamie Manzer says in 1 year alone, the SASA Crisis Center in Hastings came in contact with 14 trafficking victims. How many of these led to trafficking cases or charges?
None. In the human trafficking sense. Other portions of the crime were reported in some of our cases, whether it be an assault or whether that be trespassing, harassment, terroristic threats. But none of our survivors at that time reported the sex trafficking, the prostitution element, for any myriad of reasons. In part, mostly because they had a hard time identifying with that label themselves.
The label of?
Sex trafficking, prostitute.
Do you ever find yourself saying, you know, I want to go back and have this guy held accountable for what he did?
Oh, yeah. I do, but I can't think of anything that the criminal justice system has to offer for me in this case that any system honestly has to offer in this. I can't think of anything that would, I don't know, make me feel better.
When you tell your story, what do you hope people take away from it?
For any of the victims and survivors out there, that there is a life beyond that. And don't give up, because we are fighting for them. And if you're out there and you want to reach out to us, then we can get together and hopefully kind of help each other.
If anybody could take anything away from my story, is it could happen to anybody. Hopefully that it opens people's eyes, that they start to be more aware of their surroundings and what's going on. You know, maybe it'll make a mom check their daughter's Facebook and stuff more, you know. My biggest thing is just, I share my story for awareness so that there won't be another me, or I can save another girl's life and give a mom hope, give a dad hope that, you know, their child can make it through it.
I would not go back for anything, because those experiences have put me in this seat today to where I can talk about the horrible things that human beings are doing to other human beings. And hopefully even one person is going to listen to my experience and believe me and realize, yes, this is horrible. There's something I can do in hopes that somebody else does not have to go through this. What I'm doing is not about me. It's about my daughter and that generation. It's about other thousands of women and children that are subjected to this every day.
We have a responsibility as a community to stop ignoring it. There were a lot of people, obviously looking back, who could have intervened and didn't. And because of that, there are countless other kids and adults even who are still being victimized because we didn't recognize it back then. So we have a responsibility as a community to step up and say enough is enough.